Welcome to the Heat Treat Podcast, sponsored by Matza, Creo, and Super Systems.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Heat Treat Podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of heat treatment and innovation driving the industry forward. I'm your host, Carlos Torres, and I'm thrilled today to have you with us. In this episode, we're diving into one of the biggest questions facing the heat treatment world today. Where the industry is going? Is atmosphere going to stay? How much is going to be vacuum? The future of batching continues? And who better to guide us through these topics than someone with deep expertise?
Yes. How's it going? How's everybody doing out there?
Everybody's doing fantastic.
Good.
Thrilled and very happy to have you here. We had a little time difference zone, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, no problem.
Podcast and happy to talk to you about Heat Treat today, Jeff. Yeah. But before we get started, a quick reminder to the audience: if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with anyone you like, exploring the cutting edge of heat treatment. Now, let's get into Jeff. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos, for inviting me on. Been looking forward to doing this podcast for quite some time with you.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we managed to get it. But let's start by learning a little bit about your journey, Jeff. I mean, we know each other for quite a bit now. Yeah. Expos, shows. We've been to a lot of places in the industry. I see that you have traveled the world on heat treat. But before we talk about deep stuff, how did you enter the heat treatment industry, and what led you to your current role, your current company?
Yeah, I started back in the early '90s, working for Advanced Thermal Technologies, a company that was owned by a family, and started working there as maintenance, repairing furnaces, working on fixing from heat treat, pounding out baskets with a sledgehammer, to working on furnaces, then moving into multiple roles of being maintenance manager, purchasing manager, and then continuing on and learning hands-on for 20 years there, working on furnaces. And then in 2007, with the handover of Advanced Thermal Technologies, moving on to MP Steel, staying on with them for a few years. Then we that company had a massive fire, lost one of our main plants, and we dropped down to one facility. And I said, it's working with a lot of guys. I want to remember the great John Hansons, the Randy Simmons of the worlds that pushed me, that did work with me as I went through my journey as a maintenance guy and maintenance manager, and work with them guys on in the facility with doing new controls and my innovations with. I wanted to do things there, bringing guys like them in and changing some processes, and always trying to set the bar there. Them guys have pushed me to, hey, you need to come and help us do this, or you need to explore more of your own thing. You have too much ability to stay at a one company. You have so much to offer the industry. Passing on the years of working with them guys, and maybe doing some side jobs and doing weekends and holidays and with multiple different companies, the Marathon Monitor days and all the way back, and even Super Systems, and multiple people like that I worked with prior to owning my company or even starting my company. You start building relationships, and then but they see the talent that I think that I have that I didn't realize that I had other people seen. So I said, okay, it's something that I always dreamed about, wanting to build a legacy and for myself, and continue helping customers and giving some of the people the forward thinking that I had in the industry. So fast forward a little bit, in 2007, I formed the company, for McLaughlin Services at the time. And you look back to 2007 from 2024, you look back and you were like, wow, where I never dreamed that I'd be here in that short order. But having, some of these guys that are, I would say, really legacy guys in the industry that really helped me, inspire me to push myself to continuously grow myself in the industry. And then it just started happening, 2007, 2008, 2009, I didn't go full time. I kind of worked weekends and holidays and just kind of worked the business when people needed me, so to speak. And then all of a sudden 2010 happened and we did a big job, for Steve and them guys at Super Systems, and then, building relationships with them and multiple people through the industry, which, has helped grow my company as well, and meeting new people see that I've done and the forward thinking that I have. And I think, and it's not just that, I'm very aggressive. I'm very passionate for what I do. And I think a lot of people in the industry know that as well.
Yeah. You're well known for that in the industry.
I am well known for that. And I like to set the bar high, with building things faster. That's kind of one of my things I come up with. We're building things faster than industry standard. It's like, well, how do you do that? Well, you got to be able to move laterally and vertically at the same time. In some companies, that's my thinking of my company,
And what have been some of the defining or more crazy moments on your projects and your career that shaped your approach to the industry? You have a very unique approach to the industry, very different from everybody.
Yeah.
But
I think the uniqueness is.
I bet it's because you have some defining and crazy moments that made you see the industry different from everyone else.
When I think about what I wanted to do in this industry, is one of the biggest things is helping other companies, making my customers successful. And how can I do that? And you know as well as I do, when a customer needs something, they need it, they want it now. They look at it and say, I really need it now, or they're going to wait for the last minute. So it's being able to think outside the box and take on these jobs that people would never even think about doing. And then, okay, now I have this job. Now how am I going to do it? Right. And for example, I had rented a spot off a friend of mine in a fab shop for like 2 years or a year and a half before I moved into my first facility. And they said to me, we need to build some furnaces, but we need them super fast. They were smaller furnaces, but they were scratch builds. From scratch to installed, running, stamping parts with 13 days, we built 3 small furnaces for a company.
Okay.
And I realized I had that ability to be able to do that, and to be able to make that happen. We did that for TMT with some car bottom furnaces. We built, designed, and delivered 2 car bottoms in 8 to 12 weeks delivered, running.
That's pretty quick.
It's very quick. And that was design build, and that's when I first moved. Them are the first 2 furnaces that I had produced out of my new facility that I had purchased. So I always thought, how do I help that customer be successful? And it took a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, but it also, them crazy moments of working, 20-hour days or 24-hour days, 2 days in a row to be able to get them furnace to that customer in 13 days. Sacrifices. The biggest thing is sacrifices. I made a lot of sacrifices to a lot of things.
But I do believe that it's what it takes to start a company.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You have to weekend, especially in your maintenance or installations.
Yeah.
Weekends, holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, you name it. That's the I wouldn't say 9 to 5. It's like 7 to 7 for the maintenance crew or the installation crew. Would you agree on that?
100%. And that's that when you're in install or you're in design or you own, owning the company, and you're owning the company and it's all on you. you know that you have to put food on the table. You know you have to, that you committed to that job, and you know that you gotta deliver. And if you don't deliver, that's going to reflect on your integrity in your company. One, I always wanted to deliver on time. I want to deliver a good product as well, and I think with moving things forward, you have to listen to the customer's needs, wants, but you also have to add all that in. How can you do this? How can you do that? Then things have to change rapidly when you're moving, when you're moving so fast. Like I said before, I never thought I would be to the size that I am in 2024 when I started in 2010 full time.
But how long ago did you start on heat treat?
I started in heat treat.
You started. You said 2010. You started your company full time. How long have you been in heat treat?
I've been in heat treat about 33 years, 34 years.
32 years.
Yeah.
Which take me to my next question, and about the future, your opinion on the future of the industry. Many things are happening right now with nearshoring, energy prices, tariffs, gas prices. And I assume you started mostly on commercial shops, right? And your background is heavily on atmosphere, as we were discussing previously to the podcast, but you were also very close, and you even had a vacuum side of the business. What's your opinion on atmosphere and vacuum? 20 years ago, somebody says that all of the atmosphere furnaces were going to be replaced by 2000, all by vacuum. That did not happen. And I don't see that happening in the short term at all, right? Energy is very expensive. Gas is very cost effective. But having said that, there's a niche to each process. What's your opinion on this long-standing discussion about atmosphere and vacuum? And can you share your perspectives on the strengths and challenges of each one?
Yeah, I mean, we could starting with the vacuum side of the business. The few years that I owned Vesco and learning vacuum and knowing that, I see a lot of the niche markets that vacuum are very high demand and has their place. From a medical standpoint, from aerospace standpoint, from multiple processings in the vacuum side. I think that will continue to grow in them areas. But I think from a replacement standpoint, that I've heard the same thing. Vacuum will replace atmosphere on multiple scales, on multiple things. I think that's true in some aspects in some industries. There's certain industries that's tried it, the gear industries and some other stuff that's tried some of that stuff, but they end up reverting back to atmosphere because of cost. And I think that runs in a secular, as our economy, maybe our world changes with, from let's not drill, oil and gas changes in the market. We try to go to solar and wind energy, and we try to bring that. I don't think as a global economy that we're ready to try to run everything electric. I think that's been proven, right? Which vacuum furnaces are electric heated. They're very expensive to run, so you have to have a very, I think, specific process for them. High volume jobs, always going to be continuous furnaces. Atmosphere is always going to be a need for the fastener industry, to the automotive industry, to the implement, to farm tractor, to oil and gas. I think we're always going to see a demand for atmosphere, and I think the growth for vacuum, I think, is climbing. Maybe at a 5% rate versus atmosphere growing at a 2.5% rate. If you look at it maybe like that, in my opinion.
So do you believe that atmosphere is still growing?
I think atmosphere is still growing. I think it's changing with some new technologies that we're looking at trying to do, and conserving on energy with the carbon footprinting and stuff in certain states. But I still think batch atmosphere furnaces will still be, here before, when I'm well after I'm gone. And
I know that you travel worldwide heavily and you do a lot of jobs worldwide. Uh, I know that in Europe, for example, pusher is really big, and they don't envision how batch actually makes money, right?
right.
And in the States, of course, most of the commercial heat treaters, they have batch to be flexible, because they can and grow and decrease the cost as the volumes. But what do you envision in there? And I know when you have like low part mixes, but heavy volume, pusher is the way to go, right?
Yes.
But when you have a mix of a variety of parts, a variety of processes, batch is the way to go. And as you mentioned, I mean, each company has its niche. If you're a big OEM, you make gears, you make pinions, go and buy a pusher, right?
Yeah, buy a pusher, high
Right.
volume. And if you're a big fastener company and you're doing screws and you're doing bolts, it's going to be a belt furnace or a roller hearth furnace. I mean, it's going to be continuous. Volume is definitely a driver. I see a lot of commercial shops. The commercial shops, and I work in a lot of commercial shops, and a lot of the commercial shops are batch furnaces. Have I seen a lot of commercial shops? We over the years we've seen them shrink. We've seen bigger companies buying these smaller heat treats across the U.S. and they bring them underneath their umbrella and work them. But a lot of them commercial shops have batch equipment. They all and some of them have continuous, but most commercial shops you'll see more batch style equipment versus the continuous pushers, belt furnaces, roller hearth furnaces. And I think that when you get into commercial versus captive, that's where you're always going to be with that heavy volume equipment, pushers, belts. And I see that maybe I don't think you can't get the volume through a vacuum furnace that you could through a pusher or a roller hearth furnace.
Now a question, and because I know that you do a lot of retrofits as well, and you do a lot of maintenance, but you are also a brand new furnace supplier, right? When do you recommend your customers to retrofit an existing furnace, or just to get a new one? I mean, what's the line? Because sometimes you can save a lot of money by retrofitting the furnace, but sometimes it's not even worth to look at the furnace that just it will be more pain and more money to repair it. I mean, what's the fine line? I mean, because there's a lot of very old furnaces that, I mean, you look at them and you see, I mean, I can fix her. That's what I do as well, right?
And that's one of the things where I started the business. I mean, I think I've probably been known as one of the largest rebuilders in the country, for our rebuilding equipment, which I've done very well on. And when we talk about rebuilding, I bring a furnace in and we'll take a 30-year-old furnace and we'll strip it down to white metal and completely either redesign some of the flaws that are in them furnaces and do everything brand new. And the reason we do that in some aspects, a company that's maybe a captive company or even a commercial company that has a line, and now the infrastructure in their facility does not allow them to put a new style furnace in. So what you do is you say, I have to have this same footprint. I have to have load, unload. The same infrastructure has to operate the same way. So we take that furnace and say, okay, we'll utilize the shell. And we'll upgrade you the controls. We'll upgrade the burner system. We'll upgrade the insulation package. We'll give you new technology in your existing footprint. And we've done that multiple times, which maybe cost the cost of a new furnace was cheaper, but the infrastructure cost would have been supersede that by 2 times, 3 times.
And when will you say it's not even worth to retrofit the furnace? I'm not doing that. I mean, when you go like it's not worth it, it's a lot of pains, because retrofitting something inside a customer facility, you have to deal with safety. You don't have your tools, illumination, distance.
So when we get into a scenario where I had a customer that wanted to retrofit a continuous roller hearth in the field. And I went and visited them, and I said to them, I listened to what they wanted. And I did this back in 2015. And I listened to what they want, and I listened to all the things they wanted to change. And I drove home, and I was driving 6-7 hours, and I thought about it. And I thought to myself, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to quote different than everybody else. Nobody's thinking this way, because nobody that's quoting this is thinking the way that I'm thinking. And I said to the customer, I said, listen, let's continue to run your furnace. I'll come in and I'll measure from X to X, and I'll build the furnace in my facility as a new unit. And we will come in and we will have you down for 3 weeks that you want to be down, because it's not feasible to completely do all the work that you want in that amount of time on this furnace. And the shell of the furnace was destroyed. And so you didn't have a good shell to work with, right? So you did the shell of the furnace was no good. I said, we'll cut it here and we'll cut it here. We'll throw the old one away. We'll slide the new one in. We marry them together. We'll retrofit controls. We'll retrofit this. And now you have a new piece of equipment that's geared with new burner technology, new insulation, new flow technology that'll actually run, better uniformity than what you currently had, because you had inherited problems with the design of the furnace that was in there that had been built in, I think, the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. It was older furnace. So it's quite old. And they said, well, how much more is that going to be? And I said, for the cost that you would have in downtime, it would be this. And they go, that's a no-brainer. I said, if you add your cost of your runtime, you're continuously running. Now we pull that out, we put that in. And now they've done that, and I upped their production by 20% by doing that.
You talked about this, how innovations and adaptations, old versus new. Basically, the concept of a furnace is just a shell insulated with burners, right? Back in the 50s, right? That's a furnace, right?
Yeah,
that's a furnace. Then the mechanics, then electronics, controls. The big tipping point that I have envisioned when I have studied like history of heat treatment and furnaces is where controllers came to push away relay logic, right? The other one was when specs like CQI9 came in. It's when furnaces started to get very serious, and they become to be complex machines, right? Yeah. But some innovations have worked, some adaptations have not. Yeah. In your experience, what has worked and what has not? If you were the owner of a commercial heat treat shop and you have to do some innovations, some adaptations to your old furnace, what is your best bet to get the best technology? Controllers, burners, right? New type of insulation, mechanics, sensors. Because we heard about all the green emission burners, the IoT. I don't see that heavy on our industry. Internet of Things, but the scale which work. But all these companies want to sell you, Internet of Things, and you'll get a text.
There's multiple things.
Right.
I think how I
let me summarize my question. Where is the place to focus? Where should you put your money? And it's a safe bet.
Yeah. Automation. Automation is always big. Okay. In the industry, as we see it growing, automation, I think, is really becoming, I think, a thing that people are focusing on. And that being said, is the level of experience in the heat treat industry has shrank. I mean, I think of quite a bit from the years that I've been in business, with the level of experience of the guys that are the they're. I don't want to say this wrong, because there's a lot of really up and coming good people in the industry, and I don't want to take that out of context. But what I want to say is the way that we did things in the past, the way we do things now, there's a gap there. There's a gap there. So people are looking at, how do we automate it? And I think the reason automation is because our workforces across the globe have changed so much. And the cost of an employee today is way different than the cost of an employee in a commercial heat treat, 10 years ago. And I think people look at automation because they need that consistency, pushing work through a furnace at temperature. If we don't get that work through the furnace, we don't get this. So the automation, I think, starts helping that. So when you look at putting automation on a furnace, it can be multiple different things, from a controller, from the PLC side of it. How do I save money on the heating side of it? So do I do a pulse fire system, or do I do SCRs that's on an electric furnace versus a contactor? Multiple things that you can do. But I think a lot of the things that people look at today is efficiencies. Efficiencies, I think, help, and efficiencies and automation is where I would say your money would go. And there's multiple ways to get to there.
And now about trends. Are there any upcoming technologies or trends that you're particularly excited about or think could disrupt the industry?
I'm excited. I worked on a project that everybody's seen. I have a CryoMax temper that I have in my booth at the show. And I think a lot of things are coming where we have less movement back to automation in facilities, where a customer can put a load in a temper furnace and also freeze and do freezing. I think getting that technology, maybe fine tuning that and bringing that more to maybe an automated standpoint of integrating it into, from that process can fit in vacuum, and it also can fit in atmosphere. So, across the boards, that is, with deep space testing, I think a lot of people we're seeing maybe more of the space testing, and some of the other things like that are happening that I've seen. But I really think that that oil and gas, I think I'm excited about some of the new things coming with I think there's going to be new things coming with atmosphere. Back. I think we're going to come full circle on batch equipment 2025, 26. And I'm excited because I like batch equipment. You can utilize a batch furnace in multiple things, and I think you're going to have volumes change, and the batch equipment can change with the volumes that we see. We see growth, we see shrinkage, and I think getting batch furnaces more efficient, more automated. I think I see that maybe in my world, I see as being exciting for me.
A follow-up question, and we mentioned about people, and we mentioned about how we're not people with knowledge are retiring way faster than we're hiring the new guys. We're losing a lot of experience there. I'm not saying that the new guys are not good. I'm saying that we're losing very quickly a lot of guys with experience. Now, what do you think, besides that, besides the knowledge, what do you think are the most significant challenges in the industry that we need to overcome? I mean, energy might be one, people, knowledge.
I really think that we, in world of manufacturing and working in commercial and captive heat treats, the thing that I see is the lack of knowledge, because the type of work this industry holds. And let's face it, this industry is we're not working in a cubicle. Let's face it. Let's call it how it is. We're the nuts and bolts of the world, so to speak. If we're not heat treating metal. We're not building buildings, bridges, houses. Planes, trains, cars. We, as an industry, are very big. And I think what I see is I see a lot of old equipment. I see a lot of new things coming, but the people are not following with that. with the technology. And I think some of the things that I see is skilled trades. Where do we get all of our skilled trades at? The electricians, the control engineers from PLCs to control engineers, metallurgists. I see a lot of metallurgist needs, with the metallurgy experience. A new metallurgist super smart. I think there's a gap in there, and I think we really need to overcome. Guys like myself, I want to give my knowledge, help people. How do I help people? How do I pass my knowledge on? Or how do we bring I think to myself, how do I bring a group of guys, like we have with the YES program, programs all together as a team, and we're building, that team building. I think that's huge. It's done great things for the guys that I've sent through that program. And I think to myself, how do I help, my customers, even, whoever I can with gaining knowledge of this industry, because it needs to continue to grow with people as well as technology and equipment.
Jeff, this has been very great discussion. Before we wrap up, is there any advice you would like to share with those entering the heat treat industry or looking to innovate within?
The one thing that I was told, and he was one of the owners of Advanced Thermal Technologies, was Dean Raymer, and also Dave Vanderkay, the two guys that I worked for there. And they both told me one day, they said, you learn this type of business and you learn it, inside and out, your skills will be so broad, you will never have to worry about getting a job anywhere, because you'll be so diverse in so many different things that you can laterally move one way or another if you decide to take a different position. One of the things that I think back and I think to myself, that was very spot on, because I think to myself, I've learned welding, I've learned electrical, I've learned refractor, I've learned thermodynamics, I've learned so many things of being in so many different companies, and so many things from what the heat treat world touches in the world. And I think to myself, man, that's a fair statement coming from two guys that started the heat treat, that started their own heat treat. And I thought to myself, that's always stuck with me. So anything that I look at is, if you get into this industry and you really are passionate about it and you really love it, you can learn from the metallurgy side of it. You can learn so much that touches so much in the world. And that's probably what I'd have to say.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and I wish to talk to you even further on that show or somewhere else.